Welcome to Cooking with Benson. We're back with another episode of the Star Wars Official Galaxy Edge Cookbook. Sorry, what, third, fourth recipe out of this book? I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. But today we are going to make fungus loaf. I know that sounds delicious, right? And if you can't tell by the title, fungus loaf basically is just a mushroom bread. I have tried this recipe once already. Mine kind of comes out really earthy and garlicky, and I pretty much enjoy it. There are some pre-steps that I've already taken that you're going to want to take. The first one is you're going to need half a pound of fresh mushrooms. I'm actually doing a combination of baby bellas and shiitake mushrooms in mine. You're going to chop those up real good, kind of, you know, small little squares. Those are going to get sauteed in a pan with olive oil and garlic, 2 cloves of garlic. You're going to cook it till the moisture runs out. You'll notice once you throw it in there, it'll start to bubble almost. When all that moisture boils away, you're going to go in there with 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. You're gonna let that cook until it is basically all the moisture's evaporated out and the mushrooms have really soaked up that soy flavor. It's gonna come out of there. It's gonna get a tablespoon of red curry paste added to it. I use green, it's just what I had on hand. And then you're gonna let it cool fully until you can actually start this recipe, because you need it to be cool. But this is my mix. Smells very mushroomy, very earthy. And then it's got that curry zing at the end of it there. The other step is to activate your yeast. I am using dry active yeast. You activate that by adding your yeast and your sugar components to water that's about 110 to 115. So what I do personally is I get my water up to about 120, put it in a bowl. Bowl's cold, it's gonna bring the temperature down, and then I add my sugar and my honey, which both of these are in the recipe. It's a tablespoon of each, to the water, stir it up, and that kind of helps bring my temperature down for my water to where it's in that 110, 115 range. Depending on how cold it is where you are, you might have to go a little bit higher on that to activate your yeast. Stir your honey and your sugar into your hot water, then add your yeast, and it'll start to bloom. You should see it get kind of fizzy. You'll usually know within a few seconds if it's gonna work, because it's gonna give off this slightly sour, pungent smell. It's what I call the yeast smell. All right, so see how, let me pull. See how it's foamy? That means my yeast has bloomed. So that's actually a good thing. That's what I'm after. I'm gonna keep you right here, and we're gonna get into this recipe for this bread. So, get my book out of the way. All right, so in here has my 1 tablespoon of honey, my 1 tablespoon of sugar, and then my 2 teaspoons of yeast, plus my warm water. Again, the water has cooled off because this has had time to bloom and everything. But the next step is we're gonna go in with 3 tablespoons of the plain yogurt. After the yogurt, we're gonna also go in with our mushroom mixture. Now the book for this recipe calls for pepper, but at no point in the recipe does it tell you where to put the pepper in. So once I get this mixed up, I'm gonna add my pepper and my salt. Really, we're just using the yeast water to kind of break these up and distribute the mushrooms. All right, we're gonna go in with a half a teaspoon of pepper and a teaspoon of salt. Teaspoon of salt. This is meant to be a very savory bread, so that's why you're getting the salt and the pepper. I'm just using traditional crushed black pepper. You're more than welcome to try either a pepper, like a pink peppercorn, I imagine would be really good in this. Whatever kind of pepper, honestly, you prefer. So, get that mixed in there. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is slowly add in our 3 cups of, 3 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour until we get a workable dough. Last time I tested this recipe, it went to 3 cups of flour, and then the rest of it really went into the kneading part of this. So, all right, I'm gonna add mine 1 cup at a time. Maybe a little sprinkle here and there. All right, so we're gonna go our cup, get our 2nd cup ready. And then just kind of gently mix this in. It's gonna be very soupy, very watery still when we're done with this part. That's why doing it one at a time. Gives it time to incorporate the flour into the water. And we're looking for something that's not too sticky, that we can kind of roll out on the surface, a floured surface, and work with our hands. Because this is a full-on dough. It's got to rest for an hour after we do the initial mixing, but we will have to knead it to help build those gluten strands. So all right, in with cup 2. You'll see it starts to pull together a good bit here after cup 2. Well, I just lost a teaspoon of it. You'll see it start to pull together here on cup 2, but it's not going to get anything workable. It'll still be a runny mess, really. When we get into cup 3 is when we really get into something we can work with. So, but when I first started working with bread, that was where I was so confused, was understanding what was workable or what it should look like. So hopefully giving you this kind of step by step, and I'll even show you the dough and stuff up real close, because it says to work the dough for a few minutes, but probably you're gonna work in this dough for about 7 to 10 to get that kind of beautiful gluten structure that we're looking for. So kind of keep folding it in, stirring it out, pull it from the sides, and you can see that dough is really starting to bind together. It's getting thick and real, almost hard to stir. So what you're doing here is just kind of folding the flour in and then kind of helping it incorporate. So make sure you scrape in the bottom. You want to incorporate everything in there. So honestly, right now this dough is still too sticky to really work with. So we're going to add some more flour to it. So it's about 1/3 of a cup. Because the truth is, when you're kneading this dough, it's going to pick up more flour as you add flour to your surface. Okay. All right. Get a good fold into it, pull it together, set it to the side. Keep you a little cup of flour next to you, so that way you can dust your hands as you're working this. Okay, we want our dough right in the center of this. Woo! That sucked. Dropped my bowl. Alright, luckily it didn't stick too much of the dough. Get as much of your dough out of this bowl as you can. Get it clean. Don't waste it. Finger in some flour. Push that off of there. Okay. Alright. Sprinkle your dough. Sprinkle your hands. Trust me, it's gonna take a lot of this flour, so don't be too afraid to get it coated. And the way I knead is I push out, fold back, push out, fold back, push out, fold it back, and then when it starts to get too long, I bring it into itself here and rotate it. Hit your surface with some more flour. Again, we're getting sticky, so we're going back in with some more dough, or more flour. Fold, fold, re-flour. Good fold here. We're going to get it off the surface because it's starting to get a little sticky in certain places. You are going to get flour on you and almost everything else in your kitchen. It's just kind of the way good bread making goes. Push, fold, push, fold, push, fold, in, up, re-flour as much as you can, upside down, push, fold, push, fold, push, fold, push, fold. Oh, sorry. Then it looks like that, and I go inside, inside, lift, re-flour your surface, upside down, push, fold it back, push it, fold it back, push it, fold it back, and you got that log, come in, more flour on your surface, upside down, a little on the hand, starting to get a little sticky. Now, what you're looking for is a soft, fluffy dough that when you push on it, it springs back. See how that doesn't spring back? It leaves that hole there. We're looking for it to spring back. That's how we'll know our dough is ready for its first rise. So fold them in half like that. I didn't look. My bread making, that's always what I've always found is this recipe will call for, you know, 3.5 cups. I always end up going through 4, maybe 5 cups. I don't know if it's altitude. I don't know if I'm missing a step, but it just seems like in order to get this dough to what they call soft and fluffy, I always end up adding more flour than what they originally call for. And I mean, I'm following the liquid steps, so I don't know. Once it stops being so sticky that you're not, you know, you're not having to constantly flour your hands, you'll be able to actually work this in your, like up in the air, like in your hands. Like I'd be able to kind of work it like this, but see how sticky it is? It shouldn't be that sticky. There, let's get some of the trimmings off into the, we'll fold it back in there, so. You'll feel it. You'll notice it stop being so sticky, so. All right, so watch this. You'll see where it's starting to do its trick. We're starting to see that gluten build. Watch. Shove it down. See how it starts to pull itself back together? That's that gluten starting to form. All right, I shouldn't have to add any more flour. Now it's really just kind of kneading it. Like I said, you're going to do this once it gets where it's not so sticky anymore. You're probably looking at about 5 minutes worth of kneading. So just a little bit. I'm at that point where I don't necessarily have to do the fold to it. I can just push, rotate, or we'll push, fold, push, up, push. Basically, we're just kind of, we're keeping this moving is what we're doing. We're building those strong gluten strands. So I've noticed mine's starting to get a little bit sticky again from working it so much. A little bit more just to kind of keep my hands from sticking. A little bit more to keep the surface. So yeah, we've been going at this about 5.5, 6 minutes now. So now how we want to check it is we want to grab our dough, get it like this, start tucking those corners in. Not even really corner, just kind of tuck and roll it until you get like the top, and then you just go in. It's still sticky, but it's starting to bounce back, so. All right, we're gonna keep going. Because we should be able to build a smooth top to it. Alright, and how you know you're ready is when you can grab your dough like this and start pulling. If you notice, the last time I pulled, the top of that dough got really kind of rigidy looking. So, we just want to go in and see how it bounces back. In, and it bounces back. So, I'm going to keep working mine a little bit more until I get a good bounce to it. Okay. Alright, looks good. We're going to get it into a dish that has been oiled and get it covered and get it someplace warm for an hour to rise. So, I'm just using my old Dutch oven. Olive oil. We want it to coat the sides, so. A little bit more. Then we want to go seam side down into our bowl. Again, cover it with plastic or a tea cloth and put it someplace warm to rise for 1 hour. I'll bring you back in an hour to show what it looks like. Now I gotta get this mess cleaned up. Alright, so as you can see, our dough has doubled in size actually. Remember, it was about this big in here. So we're gonna get it out, get it into the bread pan. We're gonna spray the bread pan with some cooking oil, or, I mean, you can just do olive oil, but you wanna spray the pan so that it doesn't stick. So either use cooking spray or some olive oil, do a thin layer all over it. And then we're gonna basically punch this down, roll it into a rectangle so they'll fit in our pan, and we'll go from there. So we wanna kinda punch this down a little bit. Get this guy out of here. Okay, so we want to shape it into a rectangle that is about the size of our pan, actually a little bit bigger. Pick it up, roll it, just kind of roll it and tuck. Roll it and tuck, so see how it's tucked underneath. And we want to lay it in our bread pan. And then we're going to cover it, and it's going to rest for 45 minutes, and it should puff up again. It'll probably be standing out of this pan almost twice this height. And then that's when we'll go in the oven at 400 for 45 minutes. So we're going to cover this and let it puff up again. I'll show you what it looks like when it's risen for another 45 minutes. Alright, so this is 45 minutes after our second rise. As you can see, it's consumed the entire space of the pan, whereas earlier it was probably below the lip of the pan that much. This is going in the oven at 400 for about 45 minutes, or until the top is a nice golden brown color. So I'll bring you back when it's fully cooled off and we can actually cut into it. So, alright, there it is, fresh out of the oven. We're going to let it cool off fully before we do anything with it, because it is still good and warm. Alright, so here's our fungus bread, all cooled off. We're going to slice into it, so. Again, it does have a very crispy top, so you'll want to do don't put a lot of pressure into it. You want to saw it. Use your bread knife's teeth. Alright, there it is. Still got a little steam on the inside. It smells very earthy, real moist, so let's take a bite. Alright, so again, I have made this before. It's really good with a little bit of butter on it. My wife actually eats it with cream cheese on it, but it's just straight the hill, so. The crust itself is real nice. It's real crispy, it's real hard. I like that in the crust, whereas the inside's still kind of airy. It's not super dense or anything like that. It's got a really strong garlic smell to it, because you do put garlic in with the mushrooms, but it doesn't have an overly mushroom taste. If you eat just straight mushrooms, you know they have that earthy, rich flavor to them. It gives the bread a richness that normal like white bread doesn't have, but it doesn't give it that earthy fungus flavor. Which is interesting, because again, it definitely doesn't taste like white bread. It tastes like it's got something else to it, but it's not what you would expect, especially being that there's a little bit of curry paste in there, there's all those half-pound mushrooms in there, plus the garlic. It just tastes like a well-rounded piece of bread, so I like it. It's pretty good. I'm sure we'll be making it again in the future. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know if you get a chance to make it, and we'll see you in the kitchen. I know that I tried something my wife was telling me about with the fungus loaf. Add cream cheese to it. It's so much better with cream cheese. The cream cheese causes all the flavors that you've mixed into this bread to kind of shine through. It's creamy from the cream cheese, but the cream cheese causes it to give it like almost an earthiness. Not a heavy one though. And all the little like subtle like pepper and curry paste nuances kind of really shine through. It's really good with cream cheese. If you make this, eat some cream cheese on it. Love you guys.